My father's voice stayed low. That was the part that made it so chilling. He simply picked up his glass of red wine, his movements slow and careful, as if he were about to give a formal speech. A heavy silence fell over the room. Across the long Thanksgiving table, his eyes locked onto mine. "You are such a disappointment, Maya," he said. His tone was steady and completely cold. "Go find a trash heap to live in. That is where you truly belong." I felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. I looked at my mother, Brenda. She didn't say a word to defend me. She just kept looking into her wine glass, taking a slow sip like she hadn't heard a thing. Next to her, my sister Chloe put a cloth napkin to her mouth, a poor attempt to hide the smirk on her face. She was the family star. I was the stain on their reputation. They were sure I was broke. They saw me as a lost cause. They had no idea that I had made over $30 million in the last year. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't let a single tear fall. I just stood up, folded my napkin neatly on the table, and walked out the front door. The November air was freezing, but I barely felt the cold. I was numb. No, I was something else. I was done. They wanted me gone. Fine, but they had no idea what they had just started. I drove away from my parents' big house in the suburbs in my rental car, a basic, boring sedan. I always made sure to rent a cheap car when I visited. I couldn't risk them knowing the truth. My hands were tight on the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. My father's words kept playing in my head. "Go find a trash heap to live in." He didn't just say it. The look in his eyes told me he really believed it. He looked at me with a kind of hate I wouldn't wish on anyone. I got onto the highway, the lights of Denver getting smaller in my mirror, and I finally let out a breath I'd been holding. The tears never came. I'd run out of tears for them years ago. Crying never worked on them anyway. It just made them think I was weak. And in our family, being weak was the worst thing you could be. But being smart, it turned out, wasn't a good thing either. At least not for me. I thought about Chloe. She was 2 years younger, and since she was born, she was treated like a princess. She was the bubbly, blonde life of the party, always wanting to be the center of attention, and my parents gave her everything. I remember a Saturday morning when I was 10. I was at the table, reading a thick book about computer programming I'd found at the library. I was fascinated by how machines talk to each other, and I wanted to tell my dad. "Dad," I said, "did you know computers use a language of just ones and zeros?" He didn't even look away from his newspaper. "That's nice, Maya. Just be quiet, your mother is still sleeping." A few minutes later, Chloe ran into the kitchen wearing a sparkly tiara and a pink tutu. She started spinning around, knocking over a chair with a loud bang. "Look at me! Daddy, look at me!" she yelled. My father put his paper down immediately. He had a huge smile on his face. "There's my little star," he shouted, picking her up and spinning her around while they both laughed. I went back to my book. I learned a hard lesson that day. Making noise got you noticed. Being quiet and working hard got you ignored. That never changed. It just got worse as we grew up. Chloe was the queen of her high school. My parents never missed one of her dance shows. They had albums full of her photos, and the fireplace mantle was full of her awards. Chloe at homecoming. Chloe in her prom dress. Chloe winning the award for most likely to brighten your day. There wasn't a single picture of me. I was the weird one. The nerd who lived in the computer lab and started the coding club. I didn't care about school dances or being popular. I wanted to build things. I was looking at the future. My mother, Brenda, hated it. She wanted a daughter she could show off at her social lunches, a perfect version of herself. Chloe was perfect for that. I was just a disappointment. "Why can't you try to be more like your sister?" she'd say, looking at my plain t-shirt. "You dress like a boy. A little makeup wouldn't kill you." "You're embarrassing us, Maya. I got a perfect grade point average this semester," I told her once, hoping she'd be proud. "Good grades don't get you a husband, Maya," she said before turning back to Chloe to talk about hair appointments. So I stopped trying to get them to like me. I went my own way. When it was time for college, I got a full scholarship. My parents didn't have to pay a cent. You'd think they'd be proud. Instead, they were just relieved. It meant they could spend all their money on Chloe's school. She went to an expensive private college to study marketing. But really, she just studied how to party. She joined a sorority and called home every week asking for more money, and my father always sent it. She's just finding herself, he'd say. Meanwhile, I was working 3 jobs to pay for my life while I got a degree in computer science. I worked at the library and fixed other students' laptops on the side. I mostly ate instant noodles. In my last year, I had an idea. I saw how businesses were wasting time on simple digital tasks. I started writing a program, just a small script at first that could do that work automatically. I called it CoreFlow. I didn't tell anyone. I just put it on some tech forums online. It started small. Then, I got an email from a company in Silicon Valley. They wanted to use my software. I made $50,000 in 1 week. I was 21. I stared at my bank account feeling like I was dreaming. I had to tell my parents. I called them up. "Hello?" My mom answered, sounding stressed. "Mom, I have amazing news," I said. "Not now, Maya," she snapped. "Chloe just crashed her new car. We have to pay the insurance, and money is so tight right now, it's a nightmare." I stopped. In that moment, I saw exactly what would happen. If I told them I had money, they wouldn't be happy for me. They would just see it as a way to fix their problems. They would ask for it. My success wouldn't be mine. It would just be a way to pay for Chloe's mistakes. My hard work would be her safety net. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said quietly. "I hope it works out." I hung up, and I never told them. That was 10 years ago. In those 10 years, CoreFlow exploded. I made more tools and built a whole company. I stayed away from the flashy tech culture. I kept things quiet, working from my laptop while I traveled. I never did interviews. I used a generic company name. My money grew in secret. Meanwhile, Chloe graduated and tried to start a fancy clothing shop. My parents paid for it. It failed in a year. Then she tried to be a travel influencer. My parents paid for her trips. That failed too. She moved back home, then out, then back in. At 32, she was still acting like a kid. And I, at 34, treated my family like people I only saw on holidays because I had to. I played the part they gave me. I wore cheap clothes, drove cheap rentals, and told them I did basic tech support. They liked that story. My struggle made them feel better about their choices. If I was a failure, then Chloe's failures didn't look so bad. But this Thanksgiving, things felt different. The house was full of stress. Chloe's latest business, an online jewelry shop called The Velvet Petal, was losing a lot of money. My parents were worried about their finances. They needed someone to be mad at. They needed someone to blame. And so my father, Arthur, decided to throw me out. I drove the car toward the mountains of Aspen. The lights of Denver were just a glow behind me. "You are a disappointment." I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were clear. I was calm. I reached into my coat pocket, feeling the expensive lining, and touched my phone. On that phone was an app showing my money. I wasn't a disappointment. I was a fortress. And they had just locked themselves out for good. 3 days later, I was back in my real life. I live in a penthouse in downtown Aspen. The apartment has glass walls with views of the snowy mountains. The floors are black marble and they stay warm. The furniture is simple and expensive. It's my home. It smells like wood and coffee. I stood by the window with a mug of coffee, watching the cars in the distance. It felt strange. Just 3 days ago, I was being told I belonged in a trash heap while eating dry turkey. Now I was standing in a place that cost $5 million. The difference was crazy. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I saw the name, Sarah. Sarah was the only person from my old life I still talked to. We grew up on the same street. She was the only one who knew I was doing well, though even she didn't know how much money I really had. I answered. "Hey, Sarah." "Maya," she said, her voice sounding low and nervous. "Are you okay?" I was confused. "I'm great. I'm back in Aspen. Why? What's wrong?" There was a pause. Sarah took a breath. Maya, I was at church this morning, she said. Your parents were there. And Chloe. Okay, I said. They always go. No, Maya, this was different. She stopped for a second. It was time for prayer requests. Your mom got up to talk. I felt a cold feeling in my stomach. My mom loved talking in front of the church. It was how she told secrets while acting religious. What did she say, Sarah? She asked everyone to pray for you, Sarah said. She was crying, Maya, really sobbing. She told everyone you're homeless. I gripped the phone hard. She said, what? She said you're living in your car, Sarah said, sounding angry. She said you wouldn't take any of their help, that you had some kind of mental breakdown. She hinted that you might be on drugs. She claimed they tried to give you money, but you threw it at them and ran away. I looked at the white flower on my counter. It was perfect, and her words were so ugly. I felt the blood leave my face. It was a lie, a huge, planned lie. People were crying, Maya, Sarah said. Mrs. Miller from down the street came up to me after. She gave me $20. She told me to find you and buy you a meal. I closed my eyes. I could see it perfectly. My mother, Brenda, in her nice coat, dabbing her eyes. My father, Arthur, standing there looking like a heartbroken dad. Chloe, holding her mother's arm, looking sad. They made themselves look like saints. I was the bad example. They threw me out, I told Sarah. My voice was flat. Dad told me to live in a trash heap. He kicked me out. I didn't run away. I know, Sarah said softly. I know they're lying. But Maya, why? Why would they do this? I looked around my penthouse, at the art on the walls, at the view. Because it's easier, I said. What do you mean? If I'm successful, it means they were wrong about me the whole time, I explained. If I'm doing well, then the way they treated me was just mean. But if I'm a failure, if I'm homeless and on drugs, then they're the heroes. They're the parents trying to save their broken kid. It makes them look good. That's sick, Sarah whispered. They're destroying your reputation. The whole town thinks you're an addict. Let them, I said. I felt a new kind of strength. Maya, you have to do something. You should go back and show them. Drive up in a fancy car. Show them your bank account. Prove they're liars. I thought about it for a second. It would feel good to embarrass them. I could fly there in a private jet. I could buy the church and tear it down. But then I remembered my father's eyes, that look of pure hate. No, I said, not like that. They don't want to know the truth, Sarah said sadly. I tried to tell your mom once that you were doing well with computers. She just cut me off and said you just played games all day. They don't want you to win. I know. And that was when I understood everything. Before this, I thought my parents were just selfish. I thought they just liked Chloe more. But this was different. This wasn't just ignoring me. This was attacking me. They were lying about me to make themselves look better. They needed me to be at the bottom so they could feel like they were at the top. Maya, you still there? Sarah asked. I'm here, I said. I went to my desk and sat down. I turned on my monitors. Screens lit up with code and my financial numbers. Keep the $20, Sarah, I said. Buy yourself a nice lunch. What are you going to do? I'm going to get to work, I said and hung up. I sat in the quiet of my home. The sadness was gone. The hurt was gone. Now I just felt cold and clear. They had told the world I was dead to them. They had buried me, fine. If they wanted a stranger, they would get one. But it wouldn't be a homeless addict. It would be someone much more powerful. I took a sip of my coffee. It was cold, but I didn't care. I finally saw that my parents wanted me to fail. They had built their whole identity on me being a loser. I leaned back in my chair. You want a tragedy? I whispered to the empty room. I'll give you one. But it wasn't going to be mine. I didn't know it then, but the war had already started, and the next move was about to show up in my email from a law firm in Denver. The lie at the church was just the start. The main event was going to burn their whole world down. 2 days after talking to Sarah, I was in my office. It was Tuesday, and the sky was bright blue. But I liked the gray days better. They helped me focus. I was working on some code, my fingers moving fast. The sound was like meditation. In code, everything makes sense. If there's a mistake, you fix it. Life isn't like that. Families aren't like that. I checked my email. Most of it was junk, but one email at the top made me stop. The subject said, "Urgent loan guarantor confirmation needed." I stared at it. I hadn't signed for any loan. I didn't need one. I had more than enough money. My first thought was that it was spam, but something felt wrong. Mountain View Financial. I knew that name. It was a bank in Denver. I opened it. "Dear Ms. Vance, this is a final notice about the loan for the Velvet Petal Boutique. As the person who signed for this loan, you need to see the new payment plan. The main borrower hasn't paid in 2 months. Please look at the attached file." I felt a chill go down my back. The Velvet Petal. That was Chloe's failing shop. The business my parents were putting all their money into. I clicked the file. The loan was for $500,000. I scrolled down, my heart beating fast. I saw Chloe's name as the borrower. Then I went to the signature page. There were 2 lines. One was Chloe's messy signature. The second was for the guarantor. And there it was, a fake version of my signature. They had stolen my identity. They had my social security number and my birthday. My parents had all my old papers. They had used me. I saw the date. It was signed 6 months ago, right after I visited for Easter. I remembered that trip. My father was actually being nice. He asked about my computer jobs. He asked if my credit was good. "I pay my bills, Dad," I told him, confused. "Good, that's good," he said, looking at me in a weird way. He wasn't being a proud dad. He was checking if he could use me. They knew Chloe's credit was bad. They must have been out of money themselves, with their house already having a big mortgage, so they used me. But this was the part that made me feel sick. At Thanksgiving, my father kicked me out and called me a failure. He told everyone I was broke, and the whole time, he knew my name was on a $500,000 debt. If Chloe didn't pay, the bank would come for me. If I really was a struggling tech worker, this would have ruined my life. I wouldn't be able to rent an apartment or get a car. It would have destroyed me. And they didn't care. They were willing to ruin my whole life just so Chloe could keep her shop for a few more months. I stood up and went to the window. I wasn't just the family scapegoat. I was the sacrifice. They hadn't just rejected me. They had stolen from me. I thought about calling them and screaming. I wanted to ask how they could do this to their own daughter. But I knew what he'd say. He'd lie. He'd say I agreed to it and forgot. Or he'd say I didn't have any money anyway, so it didn't matter. They didn't see a person. They saw a tool. I went back to my desk. I didn't delete the email. I saved the paper. Then I looked up the bank. I found the names of the people in charge. Then I picked up my phone. I didn't call my parents. I called the one person who could help. "Julian," I said when he answered. "I need you here, now." "Is everything okay, Maya?" Julian Vance's voice was calm. He was my lawyer and a good friend. He was the only one who knew about my family. "No," I said. "My family just started a war, and they used a fake signature to do it." Julian arrived quickly, looking sharp in his suit. He looked out of place in my living room, but I was glad he was there. I just pointed at the screen. "Read this," I said. Julian sat down and read the email. Then he looked at the loan paper. He looked closely at the signature for a long time. The room was quiet. Finally, he took off his glasses. "This is a crime, Maya," he said. "It's forgery and identity theft. If we go to the police, your father and sister could go to prison." "I know," I said. I was sitting on the couch holding a pillow. "They've missed 2 payments. The bank is coming for me." "It's worse than that," Julian said, pointing at the screen. "Look at what they used as collateral." I hadn't looked closely. I went over and saw it. The house. My parents had put their house on the line too, but the bank didn't think the house was enough because of the mortgage. They needed someone with perfect credit to make the deal. They needed me. "They're desperate," Julian said. "This wasn't a mistake. It was planned. They needed a clean name for the loan, and they used yours because they thought you'd never find out. Or if I did, it wouldn't matter? I asked. No, Julian said. Worse. They thought you were too weak to fight back. They thought if the loan failed, you'd just take it. You're the quiet one, right? The one who always just took the abuse. He looked at me. They were counting on you staying quiet, Maya. I stared at that fake signature. It was a joke version of my name. It showed how little they respected me. For a second, I felt sad. I felt like that little girl again who just wanted her dad to love her. But that feeling went away. It was replaced by a cold, hard feeling. For years, I wondered if I was the problem. Maybe I was too weird. This paper proved I was wrong. This wasn't about me. It was about them being predators. They were wolves, and they saw me as a lamb. Julian, I said. My voice sounded stronger. Yes? I don't want them to go to jail. Julian looked confused. Maya, they committed a crime against you. You have every right to call the police. I know, but jail is too easy. If they go to jail, they become the victims. They'll tell a story about how their mean daughter sent them to prison. Everyone will feel sorry for them. I'll be the bad guy. I stood up and got a glass of water. I don't want to use the law to punish them, I said. I want to talk the only language they understand. And what is that? Julian asked. Money, I said, and power. I looked at him. Julian, what happens when the bank wants the money back? Well, he said, since they haven't paid, the bank can ask for all the money right now. If they can't pay, the bank takes the house and the shop. And I'm responsible for the debt, I said. Technically, yes. But since it's a fake signature, we can fight it. No, I said. I don't want to fight it. Not yet. Julian looked lost. I don't understand. I went back to the window. The sun was going down, turning the sky orange. I want to buy the debt, I said. Julian just stared at me. What? I want to buy the loan from the bank, I said. I have $30 million, Julian. I can write a check for $500,000 and not even notice. Julian's eyes went wide as he understood. He started to smile. If you buy the debt, he said, you become the lender. Exactly, I said. I become the bank. I went back to my desk and looked at the fake signature. They wanted to use my name? Fine, they can have it. But from now on, they're going to be dealing with Maya, not the daughter they kicked out, but the businesswoman they never bothered to know. If you do this, Julian warned, you will own their house. You will own Chloe's shop. You will own them, Maya. They told me to live in a trash heap, I said. They tried to ruin me. They stole my identity. I looked at Julian. Talk to the bank. Do it quietly. Use my company, Summit Capital. I want to own that debt by Friday. Julian closed his briefcase. He looked at me with respect. You're not that little girl anymore, are you? No, I said. I'm the boss. I watched him leave and sat in the quiet. The sadness was gone. For 34 years, my parents tried to make me feel small. Now, I was about to become the biggest thing in their lives, and they wouldn't see me coming until I was at the head of the table. The next 2 weeks were about moving fast and staying quiet. Julian was a pro. He called the bank the next day. He didn't say who I was. He just said he represented Summit Capital. Banks don't care about family drama. They just want their money, and my family's loan was a problem for them. Chloe was 3 months behind. The bank was going to have to take the house, which is a lot of work. So when Julian offered to buy the whole loan with cash right away, they were happy to say yes. I signed the papers on Thursday in Julian's office. I used a pen that cost more than my first computer. I looked at the paper. Assignment of debt. With one signature, everything changed. I wasn't Maya the daughter. I was Maya the creditor. I owned their debt. I held the power over their house and Chloe's shop. It's done, Julian said. You own it. As of right now, Arthur and Brenda Vance owe you $500,000. Do they know? I asked. Not yet, Julian said. We have to tell them within 30 days, but we don't have to say who Summit Capital is. Good, I said. I want to be the one to tell them. I spent a few days planning. A letter was too easy. I needed to see them. I needed to see their faces when they found out. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about making sure they never hurt me again. If I didn't stop this now, they'd keep doing it. I was building a wall, but first I had to get them in a room. They wouldn't meet with me if I asked. They wouldn't even pick up the phone. I needed a way in. I thought of Mr. Miller. He was an old friend of my dad's and loved to talk. He also hated conflict but loved feeling important. If my parents were scared about the bank, they'd tell him. Julian, I said, time for the next step. Send a notice to the house. Use the Summit Capital name. Make it look scary. Demand all the money in 7 days or say we're taking the house. Julian laughed. That'll work. And then, I said, I just wait for the phone to ring. It took less than a day. I was in my kitchen when my phone buzzed. It was Mr. Miller. I let it go to voicemail, then called him back, acting like I was tired. Hello? Maya, thank God you answered. Your mom said you were impossible to find. I'm around, I said. What's going on, Mr. Miller? It's a disaster, a total mess. He lowered his voice. Your parents are in big trouble. Oh, I said, acting surprised. What happened? Some company bought their loan, Summit Capital. They sent a letter. They want all the money, Maya. $500,000 by next week, or they take the house. That sounds bad, I said. Bad? It's the end of the world. Arthur is losing it. Brenda won't stop crying, and Chloe is just blaming everyone else. Of course she was. Why are you calling me? I asked. You know they kicked me out. I know, he said, but they're desperate. This is about family. I waited a second. Actually, I said, I might know someone who can help. You do? He asked. But Maya, you don't have any money to help. I don't, I lied, but I have a friend, a rich investor. He helps people with these kinds of problems. Really? Mr. Miller sounded so happy. What's his name? His name is Julian, I said. I can set up a meeting, but it has to be in person, and I have to be there. I don't know if Arthur will see you. Then they lose the house, I said. It's their choice, a meeting or an eviction notice. He called them right away. 10 minutes later, he called back. They agreed, he said. They're scared, Maya. They'll meet anyone. Great, I said. Tell them the meeting is at the Summit Club in Aspen, Friday night at 7, the private room. The Summit Club? Mr. Miller gasped. That's one of the fanciest places in the country. My friend has expensive taste, I said. Tell them don't be late. I hung up. My heart was pounding. It was happening. On Friday, I went to my closet. I walked past the hoodies and jeans I wore to visit them. I went to the back, to my real clothes. I picked a black dress. It was simple and perfect. I put on high heels that cost more than their mortgage. I looked in the mirror. My whole life, I was the girl no one saw, the quiet one. On Friday, that girl was gone. The woman in the mirror was powerful, she was rich, and she had their lives in her bag. Perfect, I whispered. I called Julian. It's on, I said. Friday at 7, bring the file. And Julian? Yes? Don't be nice. Julian laughed. I wouldn't dream of it. I looked at the lights of the town. They thought a mean lender was coming for them. They were right. They just didn't know that lender had been at their dinner table for 30 years, waiting to be seen. The room at the Summit Club was full of power. The walls were dark wood. The lights were soft. The windows showed the mountains and the stars. I sat at the head of the table. I was wearing the black dress and real diamonds. Julian sat next to me with a thick folder. We waited. They're late, Julian said, looking at his watch. They're just panicking, I said. At 8 minutes after 7, the doors opened. The waiter announced them. My father, Arthur, came in first. He looked old. His suit was messy. My mother, Brenda, followed, holding her bag tight. Her eyes were looking around, probably wondering if anyone famous was there. Chloe was behind them, looking bored and on her phone. They stopped when they saw me. They saw their failure daughter, not the rich friend they expected. My father's face turned red. He didn't see the dress or the diamonds. He just saw me and looked disappointed. "Maya," he barked, "what are you doing in that chair? Get up." He looked around. "Where is this investor?" "Miller said he'd be here." "Don't tell me you messed this up, too." I didn't move. "Sit down," I said. My voice was quiet but sharp. My mother frowned. "Excuse me? Don't talk to us like that. We're stressed." I said, "Sit down," I repeated, pointing to the chairs. Finally, Chloe looked up, her eyes going wide when she saw my dress. She knew what it cost. She looked confused. "Dad, just sit," Chloe said. "Let's get this over with." They sat down. My father glared at me. "Fine," he said. "We're sitting. Now where is Mr. Vance? We have business to do and no time for your games, Maya." Julian cleared his throat. "I am Julian Vance," he said. My father looked at him and smiled, ignoring me. "Mr. Vance," he said. "Thank you. Sorry about my daughter. I don't know why she's at the head of the table. She likes to go where she doesn't belong." Julian didn't smile back. "She is at the head of the table, Mr. Vance, because she is the reason we are here." My mother laughed. "Oh, Mr. Vance, Maya doesn't have any money. She's struggling. We're here about a loan with Summit Capital." "I know," Julian said. "I work for Summit Capital." "Great," my father said. "Then you know there's a mistake. We'll pay it back. We just need time." "There is no mistake," Julian said. His voice was like ice. He showed them a paper. "Summit Capital bought your loan 3 days ago," Julian said. "You don't owe the bank anymore. You owe Summit Capital." "Okay," my father said, sweating. "So we talked to Summit Capital. I still don't see the problem." Julian looked at me. I leaned forward. "I am Summit Capital," I said. The room went silent. My father blinked. "What?" "I own the company," I said, "and I bought your debt. I am your lender." My mother's mouth opened. She looked at me, then Julian, then my dress and diamonds. Her idea of me as a homeless failure was falling apart. "That's not possible," she whispered. "You fix computers." "I own a software company," I said. "I made over $30 million last year, and 3 days ago I wrote a check for $500,000 to buy your loan." "$30 million?" My father started shaking with anger. "Is this a joke?" he yelled, hitting the table. "You bought our debt? Why, to embarrass us?" "No," I said, "to protect myself." I looked at Julian. He showed them the fake loan paper. "We know about the signature, Arthur," I said. My father looked at the paper. He looked sick. "You forged my name," I said. "You stole my identity to get money for Chloe's shop. You used me because your credit was bad. It was just a formality." My father said, "We were going to pay it back. You'd never know." "But you didn't pay it back," I said. "You failed, and then the bank came for me. You were going to ruin my life to save yours." I looked at my mother. She was looking at her hands. "You went to church and told everyone I was homeless," I said. "You cried for your lost daughter. She wouldn't look at me. And the whole time," I said, "you were using my name to keep your house. You kicked me out while you were standing on my shoulders. We did what we had to for the family. You had all this money and didn't help us. You just watched me struggle. I watched you waste every chance you had," I said. "I watched you spend my parents' money on failed projects. That's not struggling, Chloe. That's being spoiled. You're a monster," she screamed. "I'm the only one here who pays their own bills," I said. Julian spoke up. "Here's the situation," he said. "Maya owns the note. You haven't paid. So the whole amount is due now. That's $512,000. He looked at my father. "Can you pay that tonight, Arthur?" My father looked small. "No," he whispered. "Then we have a problem," Julian said, "because the bank would take your house and the shop." My mother started crying harder. "You're going to kick us out? Your own parents? Before Christmas?" I didn't make you forge my name, Brenda, I said. You did that. You bet your house on a lie, and you lost. I took a sip of water and watched them. For years, I was scared of them, but seeing them now, I realized they were just small, weak people, and I had all the power. The waiter came and went quickly because the room felt so tense. My father messed with his tie. He looked at me, really looked at me. He wasn't seeing his daughter. He was seeing the person he owed money to. "What do you want, Maya?" he asked. "An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have signed your name. We were desperate." "It wasn't desperation," I said. "It was arrogance. You thought I didn't matter." "Okay, we were wrong," he snapped. "So what now? You want us on the street? Is this your revenge?" "I'm not you, Dad," I said. "I don't throw family away." He looked hopeful. "So you'll forget the debt?" "No," I said, "but I'm not a fool." Julian showed them another paper. "We have a solution," Julian said. "A nice one, since you committed a crime." My father flinched. "Option A," Julian said, "is that Maya takes the house. We tell the police about the fraud. You lose everything and probably go to jail." My mother cried. "No, not jail. What would people think?" Even now, she only cared about what people thought. "Option B," Julian said, "is that you sell the house and the shop to Maya today for the amount of the debt." "Sell?" my father said. "But the house is worth more." "Not at an auction," Julian said, "and not after you pay for lawyers." He gave them a contract. "You sign the house and shop over to Maya. The debt is gone. No police, no jail, no scandal." "But where would we live?" my mother asked. "You can stay," I said. They stared at me. "I will rent the house back to you," I explained. "You can live there, keep your things, keep your status. No one has to know you sold it." My father's eyes got small. "We would be tenants." "Yes," I said. "And you would be our landlord?" "Yes." "Arthur," my mother whispered, "we have to. We can't lose the house." My father took the pen. He was shaking with anger. He had spent his life being the king of the house. Now he had to pay rent to the daughter he called a failure. "And the shop?" Chloe asked. "What about my shop? I own that too," I said. "And I'm closing it." "What?" Chloe stood up. "You can't. That's my career. It loses money every month, Chloe," I said. "I don't pay for hobbies. I'll sell the stuff in the shop to pay the interest. You can get a job." "I can't believe you," she said. "You're ruining my life." "I'm saving you from being broke," I said. "You're welcome." Chloe sat down, looking at her parents, but they couldn't help. My father signed the paper. He pushed it to my mother. She signed it too, her tears making the ink messy. Julian took the papers. "It's done," he said. I stood up. I felt strong. "I'll have a company contact you about the rent tomorrow," I said. "The rent will be the normal price for the area. Don't be late." I picked up my bag. "Maya," my mother said, looking at me. "How long? How long have you had this money? Does it matter?" I asked. "We could have been a family," she said. "If we had known. If you had known I was rich, you would have loved me," I said. "That is exactly why I never told you." I looked at them one last time. My father was defeated. My mother was exposed. Chloe was mad. They had built their lives on lies, and now it was over. "The dinner is paid for," I said. "Enjoy the meal." I walked out with Julian. I didn't look back. I could feel them watching me, but for the first time, they weren't looking down on me. They were looking up. We went outside into the cold air. My car was there, a black electric supercar. Julian opened the door. "That was tough," he said. "It was necessary," I said. "How do you feel?" I took a breath of the clean air. It smelled like freedom. "I feel," I said, "like I finally told the truth." I drove away, leaving them in that room with their food and their new life. They were safe. They had a house. But everything had changed. They lived on my property now. I drove back to Aspen, and my mind was quiet. The guilt was gone. I went into my penthouse. Everything was the same. The flower was there. The lights were bright. But it felt different. It felt light. I got a glass of water. I realized I wasn't waiting for my mom to judge me anymore. I wasn't waiting for my dad to ask for money. I was safe. Over the next few weeks, the management company handled everything. The rent check came on time. It must have hurt them to write it, but they did. They paid to keep up the act. They paid to stay in the house where they had raised a daughter they threw away. Chloe called me when the shop closed, leaving a mean voicemail. "You're a monster, Maya. I have to get a job at a coffee shop now." I didn't call her back. I just deleted it. She was 32. A job wasn't a tragedy. It would be the first real work she ever did. I was doing her a favor, even if she hated me. A week later, I was at my desk. My whole career, I had stayed in the shadows. I thought about my mom's question. I realized I had spent 10 years making myself small to make them feel big. Why? I opened my profile online. It said I was a tech consultant. I changed it. I wrote founder and CEO, Summit Capital and CoreFlow. I put up a nice photo. Then I shared an article saying my company was worth $200 million. I clicked share. It felt huge. Within an hour, my phone was blowing up. People from high school, old teachers, relatives. "Maya, is this real? You're amazing. Let's talk." I didn't answer. I didn't need them to tell me I was good. I just needed the truth out there. I wasn't a failure. I was the boss. The last test was Christmas. Before I would have driven to Denver, I would have listened to my mom's insults and watched Chloe get gifts paid for by my dad's debt. I would have been a ghost. This year, I stayed in Aspen. I ordered food. I wore comfortable pajamas. I sat by the window and watched the snow. My phone rang. It was my mother. I looked at her name. I could answer. I could listen to her try to make me feel guilty. "It's Christmas, Maya. Family should be together." That's what she'd say. But a family doesn't steal your identity. A family doesn't tell you to live in the street. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't even listen to it. I took a bite of my food. It was perfect. I looked around my home. I built this. Every bit of it, it was mine. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who wanted her dad to look at her book, the girl who ate ramen so she wouldn't cost them money. She was gone. The anger was gone too. I didn't hate them. I just grew past them. They were small people in a small world. I lived in the real world now. I went to the window. 3 weeks ago, they told me to live on the streets. I looked at my reflection. Now they live on property I own. I smiled. It wasn't about revenge. It was about peace. And for the first time, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like freedom. End of story.